Working with a sketcher is something that becomes almost second nature when you've worked with Solidworks even for just a few months. Let's take a look at some more available sketch tools that might just come in handy, starting with the Polygon tool. Before I begin sketching, notice the Property Manager allows me to specify the number of sides. I'll specify 8 for this example and use the inscribed circle option. While the polygon is selected, I can change the setting to circumscribed circle and you can see the result. The construction circle gives you a convenient method of dimensioning the polygon using a diameter dimension. Notice the polygon is free to rotate. You can add relations such as horizontal or vertical to further define the sketch. Often during the course of modeling complex shapes, you find yourself using the spline tool in your sketches. While there's nothing wrong with that, splines can be difficult to define and control. If you can use other more easily controlled tools such as ellipses and parabolas, the results of features like sweeps and lofts can be much more predictable. Let's take a look at some of these tools, starting with the ellipse. Sketching an ellipse is a two-step process. You click and drag one axis of the ellipse, then click and drag the second axis. Once again, you click and drag once, then a second time to complete the ellipse. Notice that although this point appears to be lined up with the center, there's no automatic relation added, so the ellipse is free to spin. There are several ways of keeping this from happening. One is to add a horizontal relation between these 2 points. This is a widely used method, and it certainly keeps the ellipse from spinning, but I would suggest using a different method where it's easier to tell that a relation has been added. For instance, if I sketch a construction line from the center to this point, a horizontal relation is added. This keeps the ellipse from spinning, and it's obvious to anyone that might edit this sketch in the future that a relation exists. Another nice thing about using construction lines is that they provide a convenient way of dimensioning the ellipse. There's another tool related to creating an ellipse that I'd like to make you aware of. It's called the partial ellipse. Using this tool will help you avoid creating a full ellipse and then later having to trim it if you only want to use a portion of the overall shape. Sketching a partial ellipse starts with clicking to define its center, clicking again to define one of the axes, and clicking a third time to begin sketching the shape itself. Once you start sketching the shape, you just drag your pointer and click again to complete the partial ellipse. If this seems complicated, it is. In fact, the partial ellipse and the parabola, which we'll take a look at next, are the most difficult sketch tools to get used to. Let's go over the partial ellipse one more time. Click to mark the center, click to establish one of the axes, and click again to start the ellipse. Drag out the pointer to draw the shape you want to end up with. Defining the partial ellipse can be accomplished just like the regular ellipse. Use a center line to keep the partial ellipse from spinning, and a couple of dimensions to control the size. Also, if you're like most people, you'll try to delete these points. You can't. They're the defining points for the ellipse. They mark the location where the minor and major axes would be if this were a complete ellipse. Deleting these would be like deleting the center point of a circle. Another helpful sketch tool in creating complex shapes is the parabola. I mentioned earlier that this was a difficult tool to use. Maybe difficult's not the best way to describe it. It just involves several steps, and for some people, that makes it difficult to control. Here's how it works. You begin by clicking to establish the center, or more accurately, the focus of the parabola. Next, you click to define the vertex, and then you click to begin the parabola. Now you move your pointer to draw out the shape and click once again to complete it. One more time. First, you click to mark the focus. Then click again to mark the vertex. Next, you click to mark the beginning of the parabola, drag your pointer to draw out the shape, and click one more time to finish. Defining a parabola really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. One thing I would recommend is adding a center line from the vertex to the focus. This gives you a way of establishing a direction for the parabola, such as making the line vertical, and it provides a convenient place to add a dimension. This dimension will control how wide or narrow the parabola opens. Making use of the parabola even more intimidating to some users is a bug that exists as of SolidWorks 2005 Service Pack 0.0. As you make changes to the dimensions that control parabolas, SolidWorks has the bad habit of reporting invalid or unsolvable solutions. Your sketch will become yellow or red, indicating there are errors. However, if you accept the dimension, the error will go away. There are several reasons you might need to split sketch entities. For instance, if I want to remove a section of this circle, I would have to either delete it entirely or recreate it as an arc, or I'd have to trim it. The problem with trimming is that I would need to create geometry, such as construction lines, to establish the trimming boundaries. Another alternative is to use the Split Entities tool. You can access this tool from the Tools drop-down menu in the Sketch Tools section. You can also access it more conveniently by clicking on any sketch entity and selecting it from the pop-up menu. Once the Split Entities tool is active, just click to split the sketch segment. You can create as many splits as you need. Now I can take this section and delete it, or convert it into construction geometry without affecting the rest of the circle. We'll see an important application of the Split Entities tool later when we look at creating lofts.